Live from the Max Stern Athletic Center in Washington Heights,
Yo,
New
yo,
York.
yo!
It's
We
basketball
are back!
tonight.
Welcome to episode 4 of the Ball Bottom. We're here talking Max basketball, and I'm joined, as usual, by the grizzled vet, former Mac, the master of disaster himself, Natan Cohen, and we got the OG, aka the D3 Diane, aka the guy who was into the Max before it was cool, Moshe Kolat. And finally, there's me, one half of the bandwagon boys. I'm Ari Lamb. My other half, Simi Cohen, will be back with us next time. And of course, as always, we have the one and only, the mighty Mayor Wiesel on ones and twos, engineering us to the moon. And as always, Mayor always tells me to tell you to like and subscribe to the Ball of Bottom on YouTube. And guys, over the course of this awesome Max journey we've been on, one thing that's become an inescapable part of the story has been how absolutely amazing the MacsLive broadcast is. I mean, I know I'm an inveterate homer, and I've been told that many, many times, but I'm going to go ahead and say it's the best broadcast, like by a mile, in all of D3 sports. But how did we get here? I mean, look, we're people of tradition. Zachoria Mosalam, Binu Shmos Dor Vador, in the immortal words of the book of Deuteronomy, remember the days of old, consider the years of many generations. We're all about origins, the elders, the OGs of our people. So today, we have the absolute honor, the absolute privilege to have with us the founders of MacsLive, the visionaries who got this whole thing started back when it was only audio, the incredible, the extraordinary Adam Cohen and Avi Bloom. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on the Ball of Bottom.
Thank you for having us, Ari. Thanks for having us, all of you.
I should know.
Pleasure. So it's great to be here. Thanks, everybody. It's really
only
exciting.
only audio. I mean, this is the way it was meant to be, right? This is how we all grew up. I think we're gonna relive in some of these clips and classics in the conversations. Like, this is how we grew up with sports, right? Ear to the radio. Sometimes even trying to tune out the Joe Morgan on the call and listen to the better call, whatever it might be. The radio and audio is where we grew up. So this is super nostalgia and really like brings back all the great memories of sports growing up. I'm really excited to talk this.
Two faces made for video, I should note. And I should also note the only one missing, of course, is Benny Michelle. Shouts to Benny the legend. Hope to have him on a future show. He's amazing. But thank you guys so much for being here. And, we got to get started, I think, at the beginning. I mean, the OGs, the founders, where does the idea come from? How does this get started? What are the influences? I mean, give us the origin story. How, what's your Uncle Ben moment? What's your Joker getting dropped in the acid? Where are you guys coming from?
Avi, go ahead.
All right. I mean, we'll take it back to the beginning. Adam and I, two New York kids, two huge Met fans growing up. We knew each other from high school. I was a second baseman to Adam's shortstop, and we were always a great pair. And we went to high school together at Ramaz. Adam was a year ahead of me. And Adam, I think, will tell you the specifics, but it goes to a phone call. I mean, obviously, we both knew that the other was into sports radio, WFAN. I mean, I grew up on WFAN. I grew up on, Bob Murphy and Gary Cohen, Met games on the radio, and the Schmooze at night, and Mike and the Mad Dog during the day, and Imus in the morning, and calling into Imus with the turning point of the game and winning all sorts of gift packages and getting on the air before I was 18 with phone calls and names and who knows what.
It's amazing you were able to fit school into all that.
That was school.
Your parents were your education was happening somewhere alongside that.
My high school yearbook quote was the famous Mark Twain, "Don't let school get in the way of an education."
That's right.
So, but anyway, it comes to some point. I think, Adam, as you tell the story, I think it was a phone call that I made to you. You said you were in a parking lot somewhere. Is that right?
Well, I was taking a summer class at Stony Brook, and class was over, and I was sitting in my car, and I get a call from Avi, and he says, "Listen, this year we can do it, and let me tell you why. Why you this year? I heard a rumor that we're getting a T1 line installed, and now we're going to be able to broadcast over the internet. We don't have to use WYUR. We don't have to use the phone. It's a whole new way of doing it, an internet radio broadcast over the internet. And, all we need is a computer. We'll set the whole thing up, and, we'll be able to, broadcast Max games." Obviously, it was, something that we both loved doing. We both knew that about each other. As Avi said, we were, very good friends. We'd always remained good friends. And, it was very exciting. We went back and we quickly started drafting up a proposal. We talked to, the dean of student services, Dean David Himber, and he told us to draft a proposal that there was a alumni group that might be interested in giving us some money. And we talked to, I remember getting on the phone with what was a broadcast supply warehouse, right, BSW. And the reason we ordered from them is that I called them up, and the guy was just, the sales guy would just talk to me on the phone and tell me everything that you need to start your own play-by-play broadcast. Put together the order form for me, and we put together the proposal, pitched it to the president's circle, and they funded it.
Just to give a little perspective, if you look back at our original proposal, what we proposed doing was called an internet radio broadcast. Just to give you a sense of where we were in history, I believe the term live stream had not yet been invented as a word. I don't think there was such a thing as a live stream. So we called it an internet radio broadcast. And our proposal, and this was a phrase that Adam coined early on and we used often in all of our meetings, was to really present what we felt would be a professional broadcast, or as professional as possible. That would be a point of pride for the university. And that was kind of our mantra. And that was kind of what we held up as our standard through everything that we did. And over the years, I think we were able to craft something pretty awesome from a radio broadcasting standpoint, given the resources that we had. And it just continued to kind of expand over time in a way that was, quite awesome to watch. There's some stories that I just love telling about our early days. This was all student-led, student-run, and we really figured it out on the go early on. So we had students helping with every piece of the broadcast, so the back-end stuff, the front-end stuff, halftimes, pre-games, cutting clips, putting servers together. And the way that it came together was just remarkable. We had some students who helped us, some friends set up a server for us in the gym, and literally every listener was attached to the server sitting in the gym in the Max Athletic Center. And after one of our early broadcasts, we realized, just to give you a sense of how small we started, that we had a maximum theoretical listenership of 10.
And we never hit it.
And we never hit it. And then
we never knew, because no one complained.
We never knew.
No one said I can't get on.
Right. And just to think of over 20 years approximately where this has come, where you now have effectively an unlimited potential audience and thousands of people all over the world watching the live stream with video and all sorts of production elements that, Adam and I could never have even dreamt of. It's really awesome. It's just awesome. And it's such a blessing. And with the run that the Macs have been on, people have kind of reached out to Adam and I with all sorts of interesting tidbits, notes, questions. They see our name on the website, they hear our name on a broadcast. And it's been awesome for YU, obviously. It's been awesome for the basketball program, and it's been awesome for MacsLive, and it's been awesome for us. So, it's been an amazing ride. And I don't think we ever could have imagined where it would have, what it would have morphed into. And we could talk more about this later on, but Adam and I, when the idea came up to potentially switch to video, a television style broadcast, Adam and I were both, I guess we could argue mistakenly, very against it. And we were staunch radio guys, and we had so much pride in the radio production and our ability to put on a close to professional sounding radio production. And we were very wary of what a video broadcast could look like. And,
there's a reason for that, Avi, right? Because, the whole idea was we were going to put together a broadcast that was, like you said, it's just his first-rate broadcast. And whatever we did, we were going to be excellent at it. And when you do a radio broadcast, there's obviously less complicating factors than doing a video broadcast, obviously, right? You have to have multiple camera angles, and you have to have a switcher, and you have to have, people in the ears of all the photographers, and everyone has to know where to go to, it's very complicated, not to mention the fact that now you have a play-by-play and color commentator who have to know what's on the screen so that they're talking to what's on the screen. It's much more complicated, although obviously the play-by-play in color is a little bit more difficult on radio because you have to paint the word picture for the listener. But it's also, not as you said, like that's kind of what we wanted to do anyway. But it was always our number one goal that it was just going to be excellent, because number one, that's what we found fun. We didn't find it fun to put on a pair of headsets and goof around, or to make all kinds of jokes like some of the people before us. We didn't want that. We wanted to be, that was our differentiating factor, right? We weren't going to goof around or say anything that the university was going to cringe at, right? And we weren't going to be controversial at all, right? The whole idea was we were going to go and be Marv Albert and Walt Clyde Frazier, and that was just amazing. Just try to do a professional style and emulate the best. That's what we wanted to do.
What was the leopard suit budget on the original broadcast?
Right. Well, it was radio.
Right.
It was it was all part of the endorsement deal, so we never had to worry about this.
But
I was going to say Scandal Free and Marv Albert usually don't go together, but I think we get the point. We get it.
But the thinking was that you could do a radio broadcast excellent, and to do a TV broadcast, it's much harder. And I never wanted to be in a position where we were in any way sacrificing quality just to get more features in the broadcast. I wanted to do fewer things really, really, really well. And I have to say I was wrong, because the program had grown. There was a lot more staff, and we could get into later, when the program grew and how it grew, but the program had grown at that point. There were a lot more people who wanted to be involved. MacsLive became its own thing on campus, right? It wasn't just we were the broadcasters for the Macs. It became a lot of people wanted to do MacsLive, right? And they had the staff to do it. They had plenty of help. They were all really committed. I mean, we really passed down that Masora of doing everything first rate. That was so key. And by the time they did it, they were able to do a really, really excellent job. And look, it's always a bunch of college kids doing it. It's always undergrads, it's college kids, and nothing is going to actually be ESPN, right? But you have to have, giving a certain, margin of error for the fact, for who's doing it. I mean, believe me, we lived since these clips today, and we made all kinds of mistakes at the time too, right? But it really, when they switched over to video, I have to say they kept the standards really, really high. And I was really happy that they did, and I was very happy to admit that I was wrong.
Did you guys ever do any other sports? Was that ever?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't know.
I think they did a few baseball games. I do think at one point they tried to get into some other sports.
We never did in our day.
Right.
I mean, the idea of doing anything outside of that gym. There's a good story which we'll get into about a night we did an away game at Mount St. Vincent, which is a great story. We'll circle back to it in a minute, but I mean, it was tough to think about doing a game on the road and what that would take. Although we certainly did try it, which we'll tell you about. Historically, there's a couple other things that I think are really important to note. The first is the role that the Red Sarachek tournament played in the development of MacsLive. And this is not something we ever could have imagined at the outset. I mean, we thought MacsLive, YU basketball games, we'd have the following of whoever the, people around the country, around the world that want to tune in and listen to a Macs game. And subsequently, I guess through some conversations with the admissions department, who oversees the Sarachek tournament and some other YU folks, it became clear early on that schools around the country, families around the country, folks around the country who send their kids to New York for the Sarachek tournament, the National Yeshiva High School Basketball Tournament, would love to have an ear in, or ultimately an eye in, to that tournament. And the partnership with Sarachek and with admissions ultimately proved to be a critical part of MacsLive flourishing and growing and really kind of gaining a following nationally and internationally, and a foothold in the university, which is a really interesting turn that we never would have thought of.
You mentioned, I think for those not aware of Sarachek, you mentioned it's a high school basketball tournament. I think the other important factor for those who don't realize, maybe people that sort of watching this without the knowledge, is the majority of the teams were from out of town. Right, the majority of teams that competed in the Sarachek basketball tournament, even though the New York area had plenty of teams that could compete, they usually only took the top two, the top four,
and the home team
as it grew, and the home team, and sort of MTA, and sort of where it went. But it was really to expose, right? It was expose this other audience, both the basketball players and not, to YU. So a ton of out of town audience that wasn't able to connect to those games or watch those games or
Yeah.
watch their kids or families play
And talk-
in any other way.
Yeah, and talk about how he misjudged that, because my thinking always was that we would have, essentially Sarachek would be a recruiting event for other people to come in. If you want to call a game, let's see if you're good. And if you're any good, we'll put you, we'll consider using you next year for the Max games when it counts. And it turned out that first year in 2002, that's when we learned out that the server was limited and everything crashed. And Sarachek 2002 was not a huge success for us. Our first year, right? 2001, 2002, not a huge success for us, but we recorded the games and we got all the broadcasters to come in. And that's when we saw, how much interest there was. And the following year, when we finally got our act together, we had, a nice big listenership. We had 4,000 unique listeners during the 5-day tournament, which we thought was a big deal at the time. And we realized at that point, like, whoa, this is really going to be our premier event. And the Macs season, the Macs were, a good team, but there was not a lot of people interested in listening. And it suddenly became, let's start the season and let's build towards our Super Bowl. Our premier event is going to be the Sarachek tournament. And we really, really prepared for the 2004 Sarachek tournament. And we had some great production that year. We had 6,000 listeners as opposed to 4,000 over the 5 days. But we really put together tons of game previews before every game and recaps after every game. And we had our website developed.
I want to talk about this. I want to talk about this part because Adam's going to be modest. There's a whole other wing of MacsLive that Adam gets a ridiculous amount of credit for, which is the written journalism piece. I mean, Adam and I used to go back to Adam's dorm room. We would do the full broadcast setup in his room, practice everything, listen to clips, listen to ourselves over and over and over, take notes, go over stats and things like that.
Make his roommate crazy.
Yeah. And Adam started to, at some point, I remember it so well. He still types, at a ridiculous pace. But at some point, Adam started to put out stories that just needed to be written. There were game summaries, game previews. And next thing you know, I see at the top of these pages, this thing called MacsLive Reporting Services. And all of a sudden, in a matter of minutes, all of a sudden there was a journalism wing of MacsLive that was founded. Adam is putting out press releases, typing feverishly. I mean, within minutes after a game, there would be a full game, a post game, and Adam, you get the credit in my mind for setting a standard for what the whole journalism piece of the program needed to be, way beyond just you and I, doing games on the air, and it set a standard, and it was so serious. And Adam and I were looking back at this just the other night when thinking about this podcast we're going to be recording. Adam wrote. There may be an element of chutzpah in this. Adam, when Red Sarachek passed, Adam wrote a quite a lengthy obituary, an obituary, detailing the life of Red Sarachek and his accomplishments and what he meant to Jewish basketball and to coaching. And it really just gives you a kind of a window into the way we thought about the program and our role and what we were doing. And to this day, when they do games, the amount of journalistic content that surrounds any particular broadcast is remarkable. And it was something that Adam just kind of naturally put together. And then for Sarachek, it was just, 30 games over 4 days at different venues. Adam created, I think, the first ever media guide for Sarachek, which was almost 100-page document that was put out for all the broadcasters, for anybody involved in the tournament, to have all the information needed that any media guide would have. And we sent out questionnaires to the teams around the country in advance and collected an absurd amount of information. And we looked at index cards that we had prepared for games with notes on them. And there was just so much that went into the program. And just in thinking about, all of those different pieces, it just came together quite remarkably. And Sarachek was obviously always a huge part of that. And then the technology pieces were pretty awesome too. And we had students, Adam, how fast was the live scoreboard put together by students, coded entirely from scratch by YU students to have a live run? It was ridiculous.
So in 2003, I decided, you know what, we need a website. So I went on, what was it? Front page, Microsoft front page.
It wasn't like it is now,
right?
where you just go to Squarespace and set up a site.
You know, I used whatever the graphics that come with a package, a little basketball. I put MacsLive in front of it, and
we're
literally,
still using that graphics package, right?
I didn't know what I was doing, so I sent some of this. I don't know if anyone can share the screen and put any of this up, but I basically, I wanted there to be a live scoreboard, but of course we didn't have a live scoreboard. So I literally just sat there with this second computer next to me, and I would, as soon as the score would change, I would change the score and upload the new web page to the front page, and I would just sit there uploading it over and over and over again. That year, that was 2003. 2004 is the year we made the big push. We've got some very, very talented people. Josh Rickless, enormously talented, and he joined. You could tell it was a very big turning point for us because he was our first president who never went on the air. And because it was such a focus on the behind the scenes tech. And he helped us put together, a much better website. He wrote the whole website, and the website it was done in a way that not only, what's the back end side to make it, very easy for anybody else to just go in, log in, and just update anything you need to update, upload the stories, upload the pictures, all of that could be done. And then I think it was a couple of years later, we had some other, again, all done by YU undergrads. I mean, that's just was so amazing. And so Asher Goldberg and Danny Cohen, they would, I think one night they just like sat up, late one night and just, wrote this code. It was like a scene out of Silicon Valley where they just wrote this, extensive code, and then eventually rewrote this entire live updating scoreboard that was all controlled by touch screens. And we would have statisticians. Again, at this point, this is years later, right? This is like 2007, I think. Lots of people want to join MacsLive because they heard it in the Sarachek tournament. Now they come to YU and they're really excited to be a part of it because we all think being on the radio is fun. Being a part of it is fun. So they would you'd sit in front of a one of the early touchscreen monitors, and you could, every time someone hit a basket, press a button, and the box score, live updating box score, who hit the basket, who got a rebound, missed shots, made shots, all kinds of statistics that were kept, and that probably still exists from all these games. And it would feed right into another monitor that was in front of the broadcasters, who could also touch screen and move around, and they would have all the statistics right in front of them. What we had done before was we had just someone keeping the stats in the game, and they would have their own, they'd be in the ear of the broadcaster, and they'd be feeding the stats to the broadcaster. But of course that, has the downside of sometimes being a little distracting. When by the time you're experienced, you can get good at it, and someone can talk in your ear and you can keep going and not get distracted and just do it seamlessly. But, it just, the technology side and the students who worked on the technology really just took it to a whole new level. And I actually feel badly mentioning any names because, I'm leaving out tons of people, and I don't want to leave out, people. But these are just some of the key moments in the history of the program.
Yeah, I mean, the unsung heroes of MacsLive are those people who never wanted to be on the air. The Asher Goldbergs of the world who did some work on there, but was really there to Ellie Galler. There's so many, Adam, who just were there for whatever pieces they could contribute to, and just took ownership of and just ran with in amazing ways.
Well, Evan Silver was a tech guy. Adam Kaplan joined just for writing. So we had a lot of that.
And Adam and Avi want to make clear that those are the only people that they intend on thanking. The rest of you guys,
forget it. The job just wasn't up to snuff.
That is literally my nightmare.
What was the team's response to you guys? How did that what was the connection for the team? Did they, appreciate it? Was there feedback from that side, from coach?
I mean,
Yeah.
the coaching staff could not have been better to us. And Adam and I were really poking our nose around. I mean, we took ourselves seriously in covering the team. And, we have interviews where we really kind of gave Coach Halpert the business, so to speak, about decisions he was making, X's and O's, team management, player behind closed door player meetings, and what was going on and what his take was on it, and all sorts of personnel stuff. And the sense I got, Adam, curious to hear your thoughts also, but there was so much mutual respect that it was great. I mean, it was fun to be around. They took us just seriously enough. We took them just seriously enough. And Johnny Halpert and Jody King at the time. I mean, it was great. Pre-game interviews, post-game interviews. We would pop into practice sometimes and do interviews.
They really helped. They really helped us. Look, if a game started at 8 o'clock, we were set up by 7. And Coach Halpert had his, we had a set time that he would come and record an interview with us, and we'd sit there, we record the interview, and we'd be prepared for the pregame. Pregame started at 7:45 with our intro music, and then we had a pregame host. The pregame host the first year would have been John, my brother, John Cohen, or Ellie Galler. They would do the pregame show. They talk a little about the team, the upcoming game. They introduce the interviews that we'd already recorded, and we were there recording well before game time. And you're right, the coaching staff was great. And I'll tell you that in that interview you just referenced, Avi, we did ask some questions that we really one of the players was shooting a lot from behind the 3-point line, and we asked questions why he's a big player, he should be down low in the post, because we're also not getting enough offensive rebounds. And we really asked a few tough questions about the coaching style. At the end of the interview, Coach Halpert always ended it with, or at least in this occasion ended it with, guys, great questions as always. Like, I love talking with you guys. See you after the game, right?
So you guys made the book. There's an acknowledgement in his book where you guys are both mentioned. He doesn't, much to your chagrin, he doesn't credit you with any coaching decisions or helping with player personnel and X's and O's, but he does mention his appreciation.
Well, he should never say anything to me about any coaching decisions. I hope he doesn't credit me with any coaching decisions. As the joke always was, right? Avi could have done anything on the broadcast. He could have done play-by-play. He could have done color. The only reason he did color was that I could only do play-by-play. I didn't, I could not have been a color man. And I think, I would even, ask these questions, with Coach Halpert. I would say, look, you're the coach. I'm just the guy who's watching a basketball game. And then I would, soften him up, and then I, hit him hard.
It really reminds me, the whole vibe of it really reminds me of WFAN, just in the sense of, like, in theory, it's like a regional, local sports channel like anybody else, but it's set this national standard of excellence and produced this, like, national coaching tree of broadcast personalities. And I think we could all think of, like, our favorite iconic WFAN moment, whether it's like a Mets call, or whether it's like a moment with Mike and the Mad Dog, or or Imus, or the Schmooze, or whatever it is. But when you guys think about kind of great games, incredible moments in your time calling for MacsLive, so Avi, what's like your go-to memory? Great game, great call. I can't believe I was there for that.
I bet Adam and I are going to talk about the same night, but I referenced it a little bit earlier. There was a night where we decided we had to do an away game. It was the potential, and turned out to be, Coach Halpert's 300th win as a coach of the YU Macs. And it was a game at Mount St. Vincent on a Saturday night, which was in North Riverdale, pretty close to where I live. I live in Riverdale now and lived in Riverdale then. And Adam and I decided we were going to try to probably bite off a little more than we could chew, and figure out how we were going to do an away game. And I guess Adam will tell you a little bit more about that night. It was quite the adventure, but it turned out that they won that night on a game-winning shot by Rafi Halpert at the buzzer. and we have a great audio from the night, and it was a great call, the play-by-play call, and it was kind of, I guess it was like a pinnacle moment of the Macs side of MacsLive. Sarachek had lots of its own memorable moments, partially because the technology was so ridiculous. What we ran through hoops, and Adam had to get to YU on a Saturday night and plug stuff in so that we could call in remotely. I don't even remember. It was so crazy. Adam has more details, I think, because we talked about it the other day. But we were kind of enmeshed with the program, with the team in that moment. And that was a special moment for the program. It was a special moment for the team. It was a special moment for Coach Halpert. It was a special moment for MacsLive. We went back with the team after the game and kind of celebrated that moment. And I don't know, it kind of felt like that was a night where it all came together, the off air, the on air, the team, the program, the coach. And I don't know, that's a night. My dad was involved running wires in the gym at Mount St. Vincent. He could tell you about it. So I don't know, that night always kind of sticks out in my mind as kind of like tells the story, I guess, a little bit of MacsLive.
I think we're in the era, just for people listening, for Adam. Adam, I know you have some amazing details on this one, which is like, by the way, in many ways, more to me, it's more interesting and tells more about like life at that time, right, and the things you had to do, and right, sort of like the ease. But just for those, since we're in the era of Halperts who are not related to Coach Halpert playing on the team, when you mentioned Rafi playing a significant role and even as hitting the game tying shot. That's Coach's son, right, for his 300. So what a moment for the family, and what a moment for you guys to be there. But Adam, it almost didn't happen, did it? Or
Well, first of all, we still have no idea if we actually broadcast the game. What I can tell you is we taped it. We taped the game.
We have a great recording.
Yeah, it's great.
I'm glad that they let you, that the team, the Farmingdale, whatever, they were cool about letting you guys.
I
have this image in my head of like people walking past like Mike Breen's house, wherever he lives, and like in the middle of the night when nobody's listening, just hearing someone shout from the window like bang, you know what I mean? Like just like yelling into the
wake up in her sleep. Exactly.
Yeah. So it was a big game. We knew it was a big game. We had never broadcast a road game before. And there was no real easy way to do it because, again, we needed the server. We could not set up the server in Mount St. Vincent, in their gym, right? The best we could do is we could get a phone wire that would go all the way to the board, and we did hook it up with some kind of coupler, right? Which I guess today would be called a dongle, right? And we were able to somehow rig this phone and get and dial out from the broadcast board, dial out to where. So Richard Zernick was the athletic director of YU at the time. He gave me the keys to his office. I went in on a Saturday night. I had the server in the office. I waited for Avi to call me. When Avi called the office line, I don't remember how, I connected it to the server. We figured it was working, and we were on our way. I was there, stopping on my way with my brother, John, right? We had slept in Great Neck for Shabbos, which is where we lived. And of course, we had to then rush up to Riverdale because, Shabbos didn't end, that early anymore. So we had to rush up. So as we get up, I guess on the Hudson, there's that toll booth over there. And I don't remember exactly what happened, but somehow John got pulled over for going too fast, for tailing me behind the toll or something. And or speeding, whatever it was, he got pulled over, and of course we're wearing our yeshiva athletics sweatshirts, and I tried to get out of the car to talk to the cop. He shouted at me to get back into and I said, look, we're just college broadcasters and we're late for a game. He let us off, no ticket. We got to the game a little late, and because we were late, Avi called that game on play-by-play because. The game started and someone had to call play-by-play. So Avi did it. Now, of course, once he did it, we weren't going to switch mid-game because that would be not professional. That would not be a first-rate broadcast. So I ended up doing color. So Avi actually is the voice that you're going to hear on this clip we're going to play. He calls the amazing game-tying shot at the buzzer off a missed free throw, right? If they had hit that free throw, the game would be over. They would have lost. Instead, they missed the free throw. Yeshiva had a timeout. They didn't take the timeout. They pushed it up the court. And from the left wing, Rafi Halpert, I still remember that shot going right through from the left wing, and just the place goes nuts, and or we go nuts. And this is an example of, well, why don't we just play the clip and I can
in game situation just to set it up, you guys. So this is like he basically hits the shot to force overtime.
To force overtime, that's right. And why you ends up
and he
winning
wasn't
in
a star
overtime.
player. He wasn't like a big time player. He wasn't the guy that was usually going to be taking that shot.
Give us a sense of the roster at the time. Who's on the team? Who are the players? And where does Rafi Halpert fit into this as we're teeing it up?
Well, I wish I remembered all those details. I mean, Eli Hammy was on the team.
Like
Yossi Geb was on the team.
right?
Yeah.
Jackie
Yulzari.
Right. They had Jackie was on the team. Yulzari. I mean, they had plenty of good players. I mean, Rafi was not a starter at the time. He then came
to the forward.
He was. I mean, he was still relatively junior. I mean, he was a sophomore, I think, and it wasn't until later that he really came into his own. It's funny. I had a chance to preparing for this, I went back and I found a lot of old game stories, and I really see how in 2003, 2004 he became a much stronger player, a much better player for the Macs. But this year, in 2001, 2002, he was still,
that was his first year. That was his first year on the team, and he was playing with a team that already had established players. Obviously, I think that was the year also that Yossi either broke the scoring record or was pretty close to it as well. I mean, like, it had some established scores. He wasn't going to be asked to do a whole lot.
That's right.
That's
so
pretty
I have,
cool.
I guess we have to do this. We put together after that game a montage of some of the highlights with, of course, a professional music bed to those highlights, because you can't just play highlights without some music. And toward the end of that, there's kind of a crescendo that goes into the Halpert shot with the music. It's pretty dramatic. I'll play you just the end of this montage that we put together. Here we go. Let's see if I could cue this up here. I've got it.
Puts up the second one. Also no good, rebounded by Halpert. No timeout. Yulzari comes the other way. 4 to shoot. Jackie finds for Halpert. For 3 from the left side. It's good! And a 90 shot! Right off the Halpert. The Macs are going crazy as if they've won the game, Adam. Rafi Halpert, not the guy you want to shoot that 3. Nobody can believe it right now. Halpert walked to the foul line. Cool, calm, and collected. Hands on knees. He can't believe what just happened. Adam, there is 0-0-0 showing on the clock.
Was it a 4-point play? That potential 4-point play?
No, he was just standing watching in awe.
Disbelief.
I love that, like, Thin Lizzy vibe. That is unbelievable.
You can hear the energy. I mean, the energy was crazy. I mean, the gym was packed. Adam and I were going bananas. I mean, it was as into it as you could be.
And the epilogue to that story, right, is, as Avi said, after the game, everybody went back to the Halpert's house, and to have a little celebration. And they said, well, you recorded the game. Do you have the clips? And of course we did have the clips, right? And at that point, we probably had already started. We had a mini disc player, right? And we probably were trying to find all the highlights, and of course we play the highlight, and he hits the big 3, and everyone's excited. And all of a sudden, Avi says, "Rafi was not the guy you wanted to shoot that 3."
The whole family in his house,
in front of everybody.
Amazing.
It's just my journal. It's my journalistic integrity.
Right? You can't.
I can't shake it. I can't shake it.
That's unbelievable. So
that Adam, was my night. Adam, what's your what's your?
Go ahead.
No, that night was obviously a special night. I will say there aren't. I don't think I have a lot of specific memories. They kind of all blend together. For me, I called a lot of Sarachek tournaments after that, and I also called a whole bunch of yeshiva, Metropolitan Yeshiva Basketball League championship games when they played at YU. They try to, make it more exciting by having MacsLive broadcast the game. It also adds an aura to the atmosphere, right? When there's like a broadcast booth, and it's cordoned off, and we have the press tables, and when the player and the big sign that says MacsLive on the air, it adds an atmosphere to the gym. And so we did that for a bunch of those games, and some of those games were really good, and some of the Sarachek games were amazing. And
Yeah,
You know,
what are some Sarachek memories that you have? And because one thing that actually has come up in our conversations it's been on social media. Friend of the pod Bob Quillman, also another friend of the pod Ryan Scott have talked about YU's unique recruiting strategy, given that we're a Jewish school, but we have this kind of like international and national
Pipeline.
network. So Sarachek has this sort of yeshiva university feeder school or potential feeder schools high school tournament is a key part of how YU attracts and recruits talent. So
no, actually, I'm sorry. I have to actually correct that, because that's actually not true. And that's a very important thing for YU that they're very clear about, that they're not recruiting any basketball talent, right? Like they're very
right. I mean, yeah, of course, right.
Yeah.
Why you can't recruit talent? We're a D3 school, but I'm saying in terms of like introducing sort of the general yeshiva basketball playing public to yeshiva university, Sarachek is a place that happens, and not just from like an administrative or educational technical standpoint, but from a fan perspective. Like I remember I'd never even heard of Gabe Leifer until I saw DRS play in Sarachek. So if you're thinking back over some of like the really big Sarachek moments, what's like, one or two that stand out to you?
Well, what stands out to me right now happens to be the clips that I just listened to in the last few days. But
recency, it always works.
Exactly. Well, I'll tell you this. Before the 2004. So the 2004 Sarachek was a big year for us. We decided to make a very big push with production. And one of the things that we did that year was, after the tournament was over, we wanted to continue to drive traffic to the website. So we started producing these, these like long, Sarachek retrospectives. And we would basically tell a narrative, like NFL film style, a narrative of the game, and we'd have a narrator, explaining what was going on, and then we, splice clips in, and it would all be done to the NFL Films music, and it was really good. Benny Michelle was a big part of that, right? They really came out like terrific, and this is what I was, doing my first year of law school. So we would write the narratives, we put the clips together, and one of the games that I saved, I just listened to recently, was a quarterfinal game on Friday, a Friday game between Ramaz, which was seeded 2nd, and TABC, which was seeded 10th. And Ramaz had already beaten them twice in the year, and nobody expected much out of TABC, but they happened to win their first round game, the 7-10 game, and then they were playing the 10 versus the 2. And it ended up being that TABC would win in double overtime, and the game was just a great game. And by the end of it, I was hoarse and I had lost my voice, and really fun game. But the retrospective, if you listen to it, and I put it in the, I don't know if you guys have show notes, but I included in the files that I sent over. If you do have show notes, you should put them in the show notes.
It was a great call. It's great to listen to.
Thank you. At the end of it, Benny talks about how, TABC didn't expect much. They were coming to just, play in the tournament, have a good time. But now they were going into the Shabbaton. And by the way, the Sarachek Shabbatones are awesome. If you've ever been a part of them. They were going to the Shabbaton as being one of the few teams that was going to be playing in the Final Four, meaning the attention was going to be on them. They were going to be like, they were going to be spotlighted the entire Shabbos, and they were one of one of the 4 remaining teams. And I have to say, those Shabbatones also were just incredible. They all of these players from all these different cities getting to know each other had very much a hashtag YD3 type of feel to it. It was everybody, getting to know each other and talking basketball and talking history and talking about Red Sarachek and talking about YU's, the fact that YU continued to play and still today, plays like this brand of basketball that was pioneered at Yeshiva University in the 1940s. And just, getting a chance to talk history and talk basketball and getting to know all the players and getting to know everyone becoming friends. I have to say that was also a very, very big highlight through the years. And I would always go to the Shabbaton because I'd be broadcasting Saturday night, and I had to, be very, very close. Couldn't have another Mount St. Vincent happen. So
the questionnaires, right, also only capture enough, right? Once they get to the Final Four, you got to go deeper, right? You got to get those stories that the questionnaires may not uncover as much of.
I think it's
Absolutely.
worth our while to play one of those retrospectives. What do you think, guys?
Well, it's 12 minutes long, so I don't know
I'll
if you
give
can
a
play
little
it.
flavor. I'll give
All
a
right,
flavor.
All right, go ahead.
Here's a flavor.
The Ramaz Rams of Manhattan and the TABC Storm of Teaneck had just finished vastly different seasons. The Rams dominated most of the Yeshiva Basketball League, losing in the semifinals of the playoffs despite being a heavy favorite. The Storm season was mediocre at best and included 3 losses at the hands of the Rams. But someone forgot to tell TABC that they weren't supposed to make any noise at the Sarachek tournament. They started as the 10th seed and defeated the 7th-seeded Yeshiva Atlanta Lions. Now reseeded at number 7, they had Sarachek history in their sights.
I'm going to jump ahead a little bit.
It's Sarachek history in their sights. By the way, that was John Facenda Michelle.
I'm jumping
I'm jumping
forward by a
what
few
I'm waiting
minutes.
for? I'm waiting for the frozen tundra.
Yeah,
like that's
that's
what I
right.
want to hear
That's what it
out
says.
of some of these.
That was
like,
my
On 10-8. They now trail 22-9. It is a 12-1 run in the second quarter for TABC.
Ramaz looked down and out. They headed into the locker room with a slow walk, hanging their heads. It would be another 8 minutes of basketball before they would finally find themselves. But at this rate, it looked like even that would have been too little, too late.
I know you guys can't handle the suspense. I'm going to push it forward. It's a long, Adam. These are the amount of
thinking, where was I in 2004?
the
Like,
amount
I'm
of
just
work
trying to
that
place
went into
I
the
said
amount
these
of
are
work
like
that
30
went
for
into
30s. It's
it's
crazy.
ridiculous.
We
It's
did. Well,
ridiculous. Yeah.
we did 29 of them.
Here we go.
Or whatever.
Rams are right back. It's tied again. And now we're seeing some high-quality basketball.
The teams would exchange free throws, leaving Ramaz down by 1. Ramaz had been given chances to win the game late in regulation.
The retrospective, I think, is longer than the recording of the game.
It's the whole thing. Adam, just can you be honest with us? Did you go to law school so you'd have another 3 years of just
Eligibility.
being able to make the time to make this stuff? Like I'm trying to make like
I don't remember how it ends.
It
Double
ends,
overtime.
well,
I listened to
I'll tell you how it ends. Well,
Ramaz. The Rams would head to a consolation round to face Valley Torah. The Rams were not done playing games with nail-biting finishes. TABC, meanwhile, became the story of the tournament. They would be spending their weekend at the hotel with the rest of the players, respected as one of the privileged Final Four, playing in the big games on Sunday. The 2004 Sarachek tournament would forever be remembered as the year TABC, a 10th seed, went to the semifinals.
That's really also what the tournament was about. Like they were like, they had this hush of a position, at the Shabbaton.
you got to. By the way, it's tantamount to hitting the winning shot, right, and then walking through the halls of the high school, right? It really is, right? You got 100 other kids who are not, right, even in the 12, like maybe a couple hundred other people there, right, who are not in that talk. Although, when you're the 10th seed coming through, maybe you feel like George Mason as opposed to UConn there. But it's still a privileged experience.
Especially for the out-of-town teams.
I always wonder whether they care because it was right after their season. It was this big push.
Oh, they care. Well, they had one kid who just was on fire. Block, I think, right? It was just on fire. This Noam Block, I think was his name, and he just hitting.
Shouts to Noam. Lives
Noam.
right down the block.
Oh, does he really? Right. I'm pretty. I hope
great center fielder also.
Yeah.
Wait, was he a future YU-Mac? Most importantly.
This is so bad for Noam's neshama what you just did.
Oh, it's terrible. It's.
If you think about
Morty Faber down the block the other way is like already upset at me.
You're killing me, Small.
Exactly. So I want to transition. So now you guys found this. You create this amazing product. Its byword is excellence. Everybody working on it is striving for greatness. And that legacy certainly continues. I mean, you could see it today. It's an unparalleled product. And you have people, outside the school commenting on this. Like I said, we mentioned Bob Cohen before. Bob has said in no uncertain terms, in addition to, the Macs being the loudest D-Figure arena he's ever been in, MacsLive is the best broadcast. So how do you see, is there, continuity? How do you got, how have you guys related to, and stayed connected, through the years and down the generations?
Well, I went to the December 30th game and I got a chance to tour the operation. I mean, mostly I would just say there came a point where I was really happy to be able to be much more hands off. I mean, it was very important to me. We had started this great thing. People invested in us. We got a lot of money. It was very important to me that it not be a one and done, that, we continued to make sure that the next generation comes in. It finally became, self-perpetuating. I think Sarachek had a big part big part of that. There was a lot of people who really were interested in it. And it became perpetuating. I mean, Moshe Cook was very involved. That was when he got involved. That was very important.
Shouts to my former roommate, high school best friend, Moshe Cook.
I'm gonna get myself in a lot of trouble with the people I don't mention, but
it's all good.
Aryeh Safran, who's now I think at EULA, I think is the became a principal there. I think we had there came a point where we were able to finally be more hands off and not be as involved as much. And I have to say, from time to time we get updates about what's going on, and we're very proud of what they've done. I mean, you look at it and just visually, it's just spectacular. They had another big investment of get all this new equipment. They've got these instant replays that are queued up pretty quick. Those instant replays, they really add things to the broadcast. They help tell the story. And again, you've got such committed people who are, a lot of them working just behind the scenes because that's the part that they find really enjoyable to try to put out a really good looking product.
The essence of the whole thing is the student. It's a student run, student led program club. And that by its very nature means there's going to be a lot of turnover all the time. And that's just how it works. And the idea that it's just continued to strengthen over the years is just, it's awesome. It feels great. And we have a WhatsApp group of some of the I guess elders, so to speak, where we can kind of stay
elders
connected
of Zion, if you will.
Stay connected.
I think when I was there on the 30th, you guys have there's a chair on the bima of the track there that you guys, if you kind of want to go sit on the track and watch your names drawn in.
So the students, those of us that kind of invested a lot into it all through the years feel a lot of pride associated with it, and that's great. And the idea that it just needs to continue to be passed down to the next generation is just kind of like the nature of how the thing works. And in that context, I think it's important to acknowledge the non-transient part of it, which is really the side of the university continuing to invest in it and support it, and acknowledge the people at YU who kind of just let Adam and I just run with this thing like Meshuggahs. And, Adam mentioned Dean Himber early on when we filed our initial proposal for the President's Circle, and it was his idea for where we would get this funding and where he thought, what group of folks he thought would invest in it. And then all along the way, there's just people who kind of really did everything they could to support us. Joe Bednarsh was very helpful to us over the years. The facilities and maintenance department. I mean, we had to get an internet jack put into the floor of the gym. We had to have tables moved around and installed in the stands. We had to have all sorts of wiring and servers put into closets and Ethernet cables run from who knows where and what network closet in some building somewhere. And every step of the way, I feel like we were met with excitement and support. And I think over the years, and then admissions got involved when it came to Sarachek, and I don't know, the university and all those folks over the years. And again, it's got to be careful when you mention people because you're going to leave someone out. But there was always support from the important people who we needed support from all along the way, athletics and to the administration and beyond. And I always feel a lot of pride and appreciation for that, because they could have easily just laughed us right out of the office, and they didn't.
Or, I mean, the truth is, they could have also just said, great, do it, and now you're on your own. I mean, it sounds like really the support, because right, that's sometimes even worse, right? If they say don't do it, okay, so you don't waste and invest the time. But if they treat it like just a bunch of kids trying to do something, right, as opposed to I think that's sort of the reciprocation of the professionalism and the preparation and the way you guys treated it, right, and the way everybody involved treated it. They saw that and said, all right, this is for real. let's and it's great. It reflects positively on the university. Let's do this. Let's help.
And in the historical context, it's important to remember that we could not have done a thing without the backbone of the university technologically. Today, there's a million ways you could set up a live stream, or get some content out there.
Nobody knows we're talking, by the way.
Yeah, whether it be on social media, whatever, there's a million ways. And back then, I sound like such an elder, but back in the day, there was no way to do that without 100% backbone from the university through their wires, their switches, their network, their server closets. And they let a bunch of crazy college kids who were just dreaming big, poke around and make it happen. And it's just,
But you guys also
awesome.
care enough to stick along, even after you graduated. And I think that's also important. Like you didn't, I'm not saying I'm bad shit, but you really felt so much of a connection that, for years later, I think you said 2010 or beyond.
Yeah, I was able to be fair, I really rode Adam's coattails on that. I was not able to be around nearly as much as Adam was for a couple of years after we graduated. And it was equally important to me that the program continues. But Adam had a very strong hand in being there, taking all sorts of days off. I don't even know how he did it, but showing up for days on end at Sarachek, and I would come at night after work and make sure I was able to support and do a game and hang out and kind of lend whatever support I could. But Adam, you get a ton of credit for really after we graduated for really kind of making sure in a very hands-on way that program continued to grow and the mantle got passed. And I have a lot of gratitude to you for that also over the years.
That's amazing. And I'll say, the part of what I'd say is, look, we've been taking it easy on you guys this entire podcast, but now I think it's time for Natan to ask the tough questions.
I mean, how many stories did we tell about not even knowing if we were on the air or not?
We don't even know if we're on there.
Right now, it's the same thing. We're bringing you the same experience. And by
Every
the way,
story is like, I don't know if we actually were on the air.
I don't know if you guys,
but we have great recordings.
When you talk about the TV and the Switch and not being a fan, right? Like, it sounds eerily reminiscent, right? To hearing Joe Bednar's talking about not wanting to hire Elliott, right? Like there is some semblance of like the vision and what you're used to, and sort of like not being prepared for what could be. And I think it's but you have to set the foundation, right? And you guys set a tremendous foundation. But I'm like super curious, especially again being on the team, seeing the development of this, knowing what goes into. I mean, I've had the fortune, of working in my work to sit through behind the scenes on Mike and Mike, behind the scenes of Westwood One NFL playoff broadcast, and just seeing the incredible amount of work, cards everywhere, sponsor cards, and this. And what am I going to read? You guys are unreal. But did you have time to appreciate the basketball? Talk to me about. Tell me, like, who's your favorite player to watch?
Now we're talking.
Right? Like, what did you love? I want to get into like in your time when you guys got to be at the home games.
Who was
right?
your
like,
Ryan Terrell?
I mean,
don't listen. Favorite players nowadays. You're going to think my OFAC,
we were. I would say again at the Adam and I understood what it meant to do a home broadcast. Right, it wasn't a neutral broadcast, wasn't a national broadcast like an NFL game. We were allowed to kind of root for the home team in a kind of fair and intellectually honest kind of way. So I think, if you just think about the calls that we made time and time again, the Eli Hammies, the Jackie Ilzaris, the Yossi Gevs, we knew the offense. We knew what was coming. We would follow the picks on the baseline with the motion offense. We would know when it was coming around to the 3-point line and who was going to take a shot. We would know we were so into it. I can almost like see the offense happening. I mean, that was why I was the analyst. Adam will tell you, and he was the play-by-play. But you could see it developing.
They call him the A set.
Yeah.
They're going to run A.
Yeah. A for Yossi.
Exactly. Get ready to pick down.
One up.
Pop of the foul line. One up. Let's get.
Right. And then we would have to ask the coach why Yossi Gev was hanging out 30 feet from the basket and he would say we need more rebounds. And
because he got tired 6 minutes into the game.
Right.
And then,
I remember Jackie screaming one up, and I thought it was isolation for Yossi. I don't remember exactly. But.
Yeah. So there was A for Yossi. It was one up. But
33, we got a couple plays.
But I mean, those were our guys. I feel like that was the meat of our work was the Yossi Gev, Jackie Ilzari, Eli Hammy, Max,
Anybody
And,
jump off the off the broadcast for you athletically? Guys who just sort of, like you said, just fun to watch, right? Like, know we're calling it, know we're prepping, know what to expect, but wow, I can't believe he just did that, or that's pretty cool.
Well, Hammy was always a great shooter.
That's exactly what I was going to say, Adam. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was always fun to watch him shoot. I mean, he was just such a dynamite shooter, sharpshooter.
Yeah, I thought Eli Hamby was one of the most, what's the right word, controlled basketball players that I've ever really seen at that level. He never lost control. He was always physically in control. He could run the offense. He just had a poise about his style that I always thought was but a lot of the guys I felt were pretty understated at the time. Yossi Gav was pretty quiet in his style of play also.
Very, very, very humble leadership.
Very unassuming. And I actually think, I don't want to overplay this hand, but I think Johnny Halpert, similarly in his style, was, even in our conversations with him, he was never flamboyant. He was never screaming. He was never, you have certain images of, I guess the other extremes like the Bobby Knights of the world, right? But you have this, there was a certain kind of poise about it. As cliches you could use, I don't know, business-like or matter of fact, but there was just something about that team that was just, I don't know, maybe it was timing. That's when we were into it, but it was fun to be around. It was fun to be around. Nobody was, everybody was just friendly and nice, and I guess understated in a kind of way that was welcoming to us and allowed us to be super into the games and super excited about the basketball. And, everybody did their interviews and they appreciated that we were there. And I guess there was a lot of fortuitous pieces to that, but,
and that was just that 2001, 2002 year, but even the few years after that, Rafi also, he became a really good player for the team, and, very helpful to us, always available for a quote. The number of times I quoted him in the post-game stories, I just, had a chance to browse through them the last few days. Everyone was just very supportive of us. So, when you're the broadcaster and you're the writer, you tend to like the guys who help you do your job
easier, right?
Yeah. It was really a good group of people. And it was a very different team than this team now, right? The current team is, more athletic, and they're, you could just see they just are a better team, but they play a very similar style, right? And the motion offense and Elliot coaches in some ways, it's a lot of the same X's and O's as Johnny, and Johnny a lot of the same X's and O's as Red. And it's, like you have like the teacher and the Talmud and the Grand Talmud, and it's really nice to see. And just to sort of transition a little bit into the YU team now, it's really nice. I love the idea that YU, right, Yeshiva University has a style, right? Like, we have a brand. There's a brand of basketball that YU plays, and it's been the way that YU has played since 1940. And the players are different. And, like what they always used to say about Red was the players moved, and, they always knew where to go, and the passing was good, and then they would miss the shot, and then they'd lose, right? And the difference is, through the years, now they've got guys who make the shots, and they're playing the same game. It's the same YU style. And the fact that we have that historical connection going all the way back, and that's the way we're winning now, to me, that just gives me chills. I love it.
Adam, we talked about it last week that for Coach Halpert and the legacy of Red Sarachek, winning and losing was never kind of the ultimate goal. It was about helping the guys on the team be their best selves and set them up for life, so to speak. But winning is fun. winning is a good thing.
And we always say that when you only win occasionally. So.
Winning is a good thing, and I think. I guess I would say, Elliot Steinmetz has his hands full, so to speak, carrying that legacy, and also recruiting and competing and continuing to up the level of competition and winning a lot. And it's pretty clear that winning a lot adds a nice layer to that legacy and that tradition.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you, by the way, I tell people now, I say, you want to watch a game. But first of all, I have to say the coolest moment for me was when I was at the doghouse in Teaneck one day, and I look up and there's, a YU basketball game. I was YU or Sarachek, broadcast from the Max Athletic Center, and it's, MacsLive. It's like, wow, they're, broadcasting it here. I thought that was like a big, but it's just very exciting to see, the team. And obviously it's been modernized and it's not exactly the same, but just to see, if you watch a game on MacsLive, or if you're in the arena, the gym, you should
Yeah, I'm sick.
watch the four guys who don't have the ball, right? That's what I love about this team, right? And you watch the four guys who don't have the ball and you just watch them move the whole time. And that's what YU basketball is all about. And that's how Elliot's been successful with this team. And it's just been really tremendous.
Amen. I mean, what you guys have built is so extraordinary. It's such a tribute to the kind of students that YU produces. We're all YU alums. And it makes me, I know it makes all of us incredibly proud. And looking at the not just the team this year, which is excellent and we're all grateful for, but looking at the coverage, the way the team gets talked about, the way that the context is set, not just athletically, but culturally and ideologically, it's something that gives me chills every time. We're so grateful to you guys for what you built and for joining us this evening. Many thanks to Oren Glickman for making this episode possible. Shouts to Oren. This is
he's former MacsLive.
MacsLive.
Yeah, he suggested us digging in a little bit here. We
right.
really appreciate it.
And thanks as always to the mighty Mayor Roselle on the ones and twos. This has been the Bala Batim talking MacsLive history.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks,
Thank you
guys.
guys for being here.
Yeah.
Avi and Adam, you guys are amazing. Thanks for joining us.
It's awesome. It's
Our
awesome.
pleasure.
I think we
Trip down
can't wait
memory
to
lane.
hear you on a broadcast. Maybe if we
Oh, we're gonna make this happen. We have
an
to
away
make this
game.
happen.
We may do a Balabatim broadcast for an away game that MacsLive doesn't cover. We got to get some or we may end up doing like a Peyton and Eli Monday Night Football version.
I want to hear.
But we got to get some of the talent back in. It's awesome. I can't promise the same music on the clips, but it's tremendous.
We
I
know
wanna
some
hear-
people that can help set up the server.
I want to hear
Plug
Moshe
in.
Cook. I want to hear Moshe
Yeah.
Cook calling the game with the man, the myth, the legend, Dr. Arthur Cook as well.
All right, let me just add one other point, which is we also understood that for a lot of people, especially at Sarachek, for a lot of people who are not in the gym, who are not there, their only way of knowing what YU students are like is going to be what they hear on the air, which is another reason we always put so much stock in making sure that everyone sounded like, these guys could go anywhere. YU kids can do anything. They sound so great on the radio. They sound amazing. They write great stories. They take great pictures. They sound great on the air. They sound poised. They sound collected. They have this facility with language. And we knew that was part of how the outside world viewed YU and YU students, which is why, again, it was always very important to us to make sure that it was just top-rate, excellent broadcast.
I absolutely love that because it's I feel like there's sort of a stereotype of a YU grad that's just cynical about YU and about everything and the community as a whole. And I'm sure there's a place for that, but at the end of the day, it's a wonderful institution that is just such a flagship presence in our lives, and to see the kind of pride that's generated by the product and the culture that you guys built is truly extraordinary. So
Appreciate that. Thank you.
yeah, we're just so grateful to you guys for laying the groundwork, for creating the foundation, and making this awesome season possible.
Yeah. Right.
Amazing. All right,
Thank you.
guys, we'll see you next time on the next Balabatim. Until then, like,
go.
subscribe, and let's go Max.
Thanks,
Go Macs.
guys.
Cool. So
Please, let's go Max.
we got basketball coming up, and hopefully